Today we have Jordan Jones joining us on the podcast to talk about balance. I think balance is another one of those mythical creatures that a lot of business owners struggle with. And I've known Jordan for 6 years now. We started working together 6 years ago, and I stayed in touch with her. I watched her journey from traveling, living on the road, being in a camper with her husband, having kids, now being more stable in a real house with a real roof, and building multiple businesses, being incredibly successful. Her and her husband, Pete, have been incredibly successful in so many things. And I felt like Jordan was the perfect person to come on and talk to us about balance, what that looks like, especially I think she told me she's working 2 days a week now is all, and managing it all. And you're my hero. I want to be just like you when I grow up. So tell everybody a little bit about you and your journey and kind of what you do and what you help people with.
Oh my word, Corinda, you're too kind. I feel like that was like the nicest intro ever. But I'm Jordan. I'm a wife, a mom of 3 little girls, an entrepreneur now. Oh gosh, 8 years. And we've had a lot of different businesses. Like you said, we started with a marketing agency and we did that for 6 or 7 years, transitioned that service-based business into more of like coaching and courses. And that's really I loved that business. And we did that a lot, especially as we started to have kids. And then it transitioned during the pandemic for us. My husband had launched a side project, a prayer journal on Kickstarter. And we actually just went full time with that in 2020. So we've been running that e-commerce business for the last going on 3 years now. And now that we are back living in the mountains out of the RV, I've been focusing a lot more on like my own coaching and funnel builds and things. That's what I really love to do. And now I'm a new podcaster too. So we've got a lot of little things going on.
That's amazing. I love that. And I met y'all when you were doing Facebook ads, marketing primarily. And Jordan and her husband Pete were the people who taught me in the early days of me experimenting with Facebook ads. Y'all taught me everything I knew. And I learned so much from y'all about marketing and Facebook ads and all the things back in the day. I definitely would not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for all of y'all's amazing knowledge. So I am grateful that I found y'all in that phase of your journey. And also, how cool is it that you've done all of these different things and now you've found a journal that you focus on selling you this journal, and it's everywhere. Like when I say Jordan's really good, Jordan and Pete and Jordan, I have to say it, Pete and Jordan.
Pete and Jordan, because that used to be our Instagram and it was Pete and Jordan. Yeah.
I can't say your name first, Sarge. But literally everywhere I go, I see like your journal popping up, like Facebook, Instagram, in my inbox. Y'all are so good at just like making sure you're showing up and being present with your business, which is really cool because y'all are always present. You're always showing up in your business. But I feel like you don't actually work all the time, even though to the outward facing people, it looks like, wow, they work all the time. They're always working. They're always doing all these things. So tell me, what is the secret to building a business where you can maintain this balance? You're not working all the time, but you're still able to show up.
Oh man, that's a great question. And I think it's changed a lot for us in different seasons. I will say Pete's phenomenal at Facebook ads. And so if you've been on our website, you're probably just getting the targeted app in your mind. And that's, I think we've always been huge fans of paid advertising because it's worked really well for us. And it allows us to be all over the place without actually being having to show up in person or on stories or whatever it might be all the time. So for us, and you and I met because you think you were one of our first Facebook ad clients that we did coaching. We really love the power of that because you can reach the right people in the right way without having to work all the time every time. So my husband does runs the business part-time now and took a job at a church out in Breckenridge, which is what made us out here. But I'd say for me, in terms of showing up and being consistent, is something that has really helped us is that our story and our personality has always been part of our business and our brand, even when it wasn't what we were selling. Like, we were never teaching people how to live in an RV or how to barter your RV, or that wasn't necessarily part of our business, but it was part of our story. And so showing up was easy because half the time we were just talking about like our frozen pipes and all the troubles that we had RVing, but that's what connected with people a lot of times more than just showing up and sharing like a business tip. And so I think we can get in our own heads and think like we have to have this perfectly curated feed or these reels that teach all these really important lessons. And all that stuff's really important. But I think what's helped me to find balance in how I show up is like, I'm just showing my life. And what you said, I only work 2 days a week. So a lot of my content now is just like my kids, my daughter put stickers all over my butt this morning when I was getting dressed. Like, that stuff winds up resonating with the right people for me too. And so it's still part of how I show up online, even if it's not like the quote unquote business work.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's little gems in our everyday life that are marketing because we are our business. Like, people aren't just buying like for us photographers, like they're buying our photos, but really they're more investing in us as people. Like, clients love my child. Like, my clients love, like, they know my own horses. They know their names. They ask me about them before I had kids. Now that I have a kid, they know my child. They like talk to him. They send him gifts. Like, my life, although it isn't my business, it is a part of my business. And that's what people connect to. And I love that. It's just about being yourself and showing your everyday life and showing up and being present, even though it's not like a perfectly curated post that you spent 30 minutes writing this big long caption about how important and the impacts that you can make in your clients' lives and how they should hire you. Like, just put something out there. So
I think once I gave myself permission to stop overthinking the perfect feed and captions, I showed Pete last night. I made a reel. My daughter, my youngest, is when she started crawling. I caught it for the first time on video. She was crawling towards a croissant at like playtime at the library. And I almost worked that morning. And I was like, no, I'm just going to be full mom, just take the morning. And I just posted like a short 5-second thing. I could have missed this moment. This is why I do what I do because this lets me do it. I'm not that real that I almost didn't post and like, it's not a great video. It's real. Like, who cares about my kid's first crawl except for me? This thing has 24,000 views on reels, like more than anything else. But it's sometimes that's what's connecting with people. And you just said it, but people buy from people, not the business. And I think it's so easy to, as entrepreneurs, almost try to prove ourselves and try to make it feel like it has to be this like super professional thing all the time. I know for me, my own purchase decisions or who I want to work with is because I trust the person. And that's because I feel like I know their story and their heart more.
I love that. I think a good lesson here is just post it, even if you're not sure if it's good enough. Just put it out there. I say that like I played around with Reels and TikTok and stuff. I've not put a whole lot of effort into it. What I've learned is if I just take a random clip that I take that's like, this is probably stupid, nobody's gonna care. People care about it. And if I think about it, I curate it, I try to make it perfect, nobody cares. And it
Absolutely. Every time.
I spend so much time and energy and we put so much pressure on ourselves to like overly do things.
Yeah.
Would you say that's part of finding the balance in all of it? It's just not like being a perfectionist about it, almost just like being that I'm just going to get it out there. I'm just going to get it done. It's better to do something than nothing. And it's better to do it in 5 minutes than to obsess over it for 50 minutes saying,
Yes. I have two things to say on that. One, my mantra in this season of I have 3 kids under 4. So that they are my priority and I love the work that I do, but they are my most important work. And so I had to tell myself if I'm going to do work in the business sense, that done is better than perfect because I am a recovering perfectionist. And when we didn't have kids and we were in the RV, we could have an idea and build a landing page and launch the thing the next day and like work all night. And that was fun. I loved that stuff. But now if I that actually will hold me up sometimes because I know it can be better, right? Like I know the level of work I can do or what I've seen out there. And I've let that stop me for a really long time. We were just talking about this idea of launching a podcast, right? If I tried to get everything perfect, I'm never going to do it. And so I'm really trying to embrace done is better than perfect. You can still do excellent work, right? We're not throwing out half hearted things, but we're also just not beating ourselves up that we have to show up and do all the things all the time. And I think the other side of that is like knowing what matters in your business. Because for me, working 2 days a week now has forced me to cut out a lot of fat of a lot of time that I would waste, right? Oh, I would spend hours a week because everyone tells you do reels, right? Reels are great. So I'd spend hours researching reel trends and coming up with ideas and batching all these things. And you would spend all this time in it. How much was it really driving my business forward versus, okay, what are the things that are going to serve my clients really well, get me more of the clients that I love to serve and do the work that I love to do. And I think if you are trying to find a balance, you have to look at your business and maybe track your time, take a hard look and think about what am I spending my time on? Because you might feel overworked or out of balance just because we waste a lot of time as business owners and entrepreneurs because we can do so many things. So I think like the scaling back has helped me to find balance a lot more.
Yeah. I love that concept. Track your time. Look at what you're spending your time doing. Like, actually, don't think about what you're spending. Really track your time. Download a time tracker app and start and stop that stopwatch. Also, too, you'll find you're more productive when you do this. When there's a stopwatch sitting there in a corner of your computer screen counting down, you're like, well, I better focus on what's important. So it's a good habit to include in general. But I like to say, look at the tasks you're doing and say, is this making me more money? Is this getting me more clients? Or is this simplifying my life?
Mhm.
And if it's not making you more money and getting you more clients or simplifying your life, it's probably not worth your time. And in the photography industry, something I tell people all the time, I'm like, all of those emails that you send back and forth to your clients, you have all these like prep emails and do this and do that, and you have all these fancy guides. You could just pick up the phone and have a 30-minute conversation and be done with it. And know that your client gets the information they need and know that they're actually prepared and just get rid of all the extra prep guides and emails and all that extra hand holding you're doing. Like, just start having conversations with people and kind out on the fluff, which I think having a child forced me to do that even further. And I know you mentioned that is like, if you only have, like, for example, we have a nanny. My nanny's here 8 to 4, Monday through Thursday. 8 to 4, Monday through Thursday. I have to get my work done. If it's not done, it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
So, like, I have forced like this boundary on my life, which keeps me constrained. So for people that don't have a boundary, like a child that goes to school or a specific time period that they have to stay in, what would you say to them when it comes to setting boundaries and like figuring out when I should do the work, how many hours I should be doing? Like, where do you set boundaries?
Oh man, I struggled with that a lot, honestly. I feel like as entrepreneurs, we get to we're our own boss, and I'm like the hardest boss I've ever had. And I got sucked into the trap that, oh, I can work anywhere, anytime. And then I started working everywhere all the time. And I remember there was one point that in the beginning of the marketing agency business, we were posting social media for people because we said yes for everything. And we were on the top of a hike in Yellowstone National Park. And I'm like trying to get service and post this picture of scarves or something like that. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, I have I'm living the dream, but also this doesn't need to be happening now. And you're right. For me, paying for childcare forced me to realize, okay, I'm paying for someone else to be with my children right now. So I can't just scroll Instagram. Like this has to be really intentional. And so what I'd say is like, if you don't have those boundaries forced on you, then just start with something, right? Say, okay, challenge yourself to take a 3-day weekend. Like, I think a lot of more entrepreneurs could work 4-day weeks. They could do the Monday through Thursday thing because is it the Parkinson's law that the more time we have, the more work, like we'll fill the work to expand to the time that we have.
Yeah.
Right. And so just do a challenge, make yourself work 4 days a week and see what can I do in those 4 days, and put that in your autoresponder or your signature. Hey, I work Monday through Thursday. Set expectations with your client. I work 1.5 to 2 days a week now, depending on like our childcare situation. And my clients know that. And so they respect and honor those boundaries. They know I will get back to them at the time that I'm in. And I think as entrepreneurs, we can fear setting boundaries because we think, what if we don't show up? Or what if someone needs us at this time? And I think a lot of that just comes to setting really clear expectations and communication with people. For us, when we worked and we had no boundaries, for us, it started with taking 1 day a week as Sabbath. There was 1 day a week we stopped using social media and we stopped answering emails. And I remember having this like reckoning of, will our business fail because if someone inquires on that 1 day? And for us, it was just like a submission of like, all right, Lord, we're going to put our business in your hands. I think we can give 1 day a week to Sabbath. And not that it's a direct correlation, but our business revenue doubled that year. And we did better work in those days that we were working. And we just set really clear expectations. And our clients wound up being people that resonated with the need for rest and boundaries and Sabbath. So I would just say, if you don't have the stuff forced on you, give yourself a challenge. Do it for a month. Do a 4 day a week for a month, and then set expectations and boundaries and really clearly communicate that with people. Because I think our fear to have boundaries is that we're going to disappoint people or let people down or not be able to be there and serve them in a certain way. And I think communication solves a lot of that.
And it's funny that you mentioned that about not working on Sundays. I remember the fact that when I hired y'all, you said we don't work on Sundays. And I actually feel like in my head, I feel like you said you don't work on Saturdays or Sundays. Maybe. I don't know.
I might have. But over.
But I remember whenever I was working with y'all, if it was a weekend and I was about to message you, I'd be like, oh, they don't work on the weekend. I'll hear back from them on Monday, or I'll wait till Monday when they're back in the office so they don't feel like they have to message me back if they're off. So I think that those boundaries are hugely important. And I'm also going to add in here, I think that expecting your clients to respect your boundaries starts with communication, but it also starts with you respecting your own time and your own boundaries. Because if you're not respectful of your own time and your own boundaries, how can you expect other people to reciprocate? And I see it a lot with my coaching clients. Like they're saying, like, my clients don't respect me. My clients don't value my time. My clients don't show up on meetings on time. And I'm like, oh, heck no. If my clients are 5 minutes late, they're like, Corinda, I'm so sorry. I know your time is so valuable. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I apologize, because I have made it clear to my clients through my marketing, through my messaging, through the way I speak to them, through the way I communicate my boundaries, that my time and my talent is valuable. And then they're going to have to respect that. And I think that it begins with respecting ourselves as business owners.
Yes. And don't break your own boundaries in front of your clients. Like, I think there's one thing I remember I would answer emails sometimes at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh, I just get back to this. I'll check it off my list so I can go skiing next. Just do something like schedule those emails for the next morning. So your clients are like, oh, she answered it at 10 p.m. last night, so guess she'll answer it at 10 p.m. tonight. There are tools and systems that you can use that even if you're like, oh, I have some time, I'll knock some things off my list or rearrange, you can still keep the boundaries that you've set and just use tools to help you do it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes like automations, even like social media. Like you shouldn't have to check in with social media every day, multiple times a day.
Yep.
Get out in the mornings, check in, close it down for the rest of the day. Check your email. I like to say, as a photographer, what we do, we're not like doctors. We're not living people's lives. Nobody's going to die if we don't reply to their email in 24 hours. Check your email in the morning and don't look at it the rest of the day. Your client can wait. And so I always ask people, is this a life or death situation? No. So why are they freaking out? Or why does my client need a response like that if it's not a life or death situation?
And I think though, when it comes to, especially for photography and service-based businesses, because there is an urgency with inquiries, right? Because it does make a difference. The faster you respond, 24 hours at max, I would say, like there are certain things that do make a difference for conversion. But when we would teach Facebook ads and funnels, there are ways to automate and systemize that process while still keeping your personality in it. And still, like, you can have an autoresponder that's like, hey, I'm so excited. I got your inquiry. Here's what's next. I'll get back to you within a day. Like, you can still acknowledge the email. Or for us, like, we would send Bonjoro videos on like little personalized videos or something like that can take 30 seconds, but you just set expectation of, I don't know, I think systems and automations, and there's amazing tools. There's Honeybook. So there's so many things that can help you serve your people really well without sacrificing the boundaries.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I know it appears, I'll say this, it appears from your social media that you are so good at taking time for yourself and sharing, and you're very open about sharing your routine and like the things you do for yourselves and how much you value just like really being in the moment, doing things for you, doing things for your family, doing things for your husband, doing things for the community. I think that oftentimes self-care and doing the things for ourselves is the hardest of all of us. So what does your self-care, Jordan alone, hiding from the kids in the bathroom or whatever it may be, what does that look like for you? And how do you make sure that is a priority for yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think the thing I'll say first is I think it changes in different seasons of life. I think there's a season in newborn stage where you're not sleeping through the night. So I don't have a morning routine because I just want to sleep. And that is self care to me. But now that my kids are mostly sleeping through the night, a lot of my self care is waking up before them, like actually setting an alarm and doing my own quiet time and like reading the Bible and using our journal. This morning, I set an alarm to go on a hike this morning with the dogs before I had to get the girls up and ready for school. And so for me, as someone that used to be a night owl, prioritizing like a good morning routine helps a lot. I also really like to, and I will say having the boundaries of like certain days that I work has also helped me with self care to not feel like I have to just fill my time. Oh, the kids are napping. I'll just do a quick few emails. Or, oh, the kids are napping. I'm going to, I don't know, do something that feels productive. I always really struggled with feeling like the non-productive work, I'm using air quotes, wasn't worthy. I couldn't just sit and read a book in the middle of the day. And so I've tried to find ways that allow me like space and permission almost to do those things. Like I got a Kindle for Christmas and that's been amazing because I'll just sit. If I have 10 minutes, I'll just read a book. Or at night, we've stopped watching TV for the most part because I realized self care for me is reading a book in bed. And so I read 15 books so far this year. And that's the same amount I read the entire 2022. Just the simple habit is I'm going to choose getting into bed with a book early instead of turning on a random Netflix show. And then my last thing is not always, I struggle with prioritizing my own self care. So it's funny you say, it seems like I do this well. I think I have a mom. I'm a mom of 3 little girls and a husband that essentially like has a ministry job and his own business. And so to me, it's hard to prioritize like asking for help with the girls so I can do something or making time for me.
Well,
So I try to pick like a hobby or a skill or something that will force me to prioritize it. So right now I'm in a quilting course because I was like, I need to learn I want to use a sewing machine. So I'm going to take a quilting course. But then having something that I'm like paying for or taking kind of forces me to, I don't know, probably because it makes me feel productive and like check it off. But I like to learn. That's a way for that to help me prioritize something just for me.
yeah. What would you say the value in like the self-reflection piece of self-care is?
Do you mean like knowing yourself or like in journaling
Or journaling, really just like sitting with your thoughts
Mhm.
versus just like doing. So I think a lot of times like people feel a little bit caught up in the whole idea of self-care is just doing things, but sometimes sitting with your thoughts. Sometimes it's just sitting down and writing what's on your brain.
Yes.
what have you seen the value in that since you've used that and since, because I know that is a part of what you do.
Absolutely. So for me, it's funny because I'm like a self-proclaimed non-journaler. I was always the person that would buy a journal for New Year's and a really cute one. And then I'd do it for 5 days. And I'm like, forget this. This is more work than I signed up for. And then my husband created the Kairos journal in 2019 and I use it pretty religiously every day. Because it's really simple for me, it's not like I feel like I have to write 5 pages. For me, it's something as simple as like the 3 things I'm grateful for that day, what I'm praying for, and or an intention for the day. And then it's just like a free flow of thoughts. And for me, that's really helpful because I'm someone that operates with 50 tabs open in my brain at all times. And I still struggle. My husband and I will be like on a date night and I'll be like, oh, that thing at the school. My brain doesn't shut off. I'm really bad at compartmentalizing. And so journaling and self reflection has helped me to get it out on paper. So I don't have to I don't bear the mental burden of thinking about it and feeling like I have to keep these thoughts in my head at all times because I think writing it down is part cathartic and part working through things and realizing, all right, there's a place where I thought about it or I'll get back to it. And just, I don't know, I feel like it eases a mental burden for me of trying to keep all these balls in the air, all these tabs open in my brain. So I love journaling in the morning because it helps me to really start the day with a heart of gratitude, right? What am I thankful for today? Set what goals. And we have these little cards. They're called live worthy cards, but they break up the day between life and work. And so I always try to write my top 3 things for work if it's a work day and then top 3 things for life. And there's a simplification in that too of just what's my priority? What am I focusing on? And I think journaling, reflecting helps you to weed a lot of that out because there's so much going on in the world. There's so much going on in our businesses. It's easy to feel like we have to put out fires or do all the things. And that's just not true. And I think I've really struggled trying to keep that all in my brain at one time. So for me, the journaling and using something like the live worthy cards to reflect and prioritize, it's just helped me align back to what matters most to me and not just to say, oh, this is important. My family's important. My marriage is important, but to actually reflect on does my life and how I'm spending my time reflect what I say is most important.
Yes. And I think an important thing that you said was it's writing down 3 things, right? What 3 things can you focus on today? What 3 things can you, not I think that sometimes we get caught up in the to-do list and we just write a to-do list of a million things. And then we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know where to begin. And I think remembering that sometimes just keeping it simple, doing 3 very clear, concise goals for your day, 3 clear, concise, I'm going to get these 3 things done can help us feel like we are productive. And what you said about the thoughts in your brain, I told my husband the other day, I said, imagine that there's 5 tornadoes that are spinning around and the tornadoes are constantly bouncing off each other and colliding and exploding. And that's what my brain's 24/7. That's why I struggle sometimes with, I'm laying in bed trying to go to sleep at night and I'm like, oh yeah, that thing, I forgot about that thing. So something I started doing that has been super helpful is at the end of the day, taking all of the things in my brain and writing them down. So when I sit down the next morning, I can just go back to it and feel in the evening, let it go. But also I started taking my notebook to my room. And
I am not joking. I keep paper next to my bed because it's always at night when you think something pops into your brain. You're like, don't forget this thing.
Yeah. And it's just a super simple, oh, this is in my brain. And I can either choose to lay in bed and think about it and spiral over it and just let it become this big thing. Or I could just write it down, say it on the paper, I'll deal with it tomorrow. So that's the thing that might be helpful for those of you that are like, I feel that my brain is always going. Yes,
you're not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone. I think that's a common trait for people who are really successful business owners. I think it's the blessing and the curse. That we're so good at what we do and creative and really good at just coming up with stuff and pouring our heart into it. But at the same time, it sometimes feels like a burden.
Absolutely. And I think what differentiates and what I'm trying to challenge myself to do, like the good to the great, is being able to, like I said, cut the fat. Like, I think you have to give space for those ideas and thoughts. And for me, I use Notion now. So I try to keep like a bank of ideas, or like a bank of, this is a good thing, but is it right now? Or this is something I can think about. So like, I don't forget about it. I honor the fact that it's an idea. Maybe I'll go back to it, but I will warn any entrepreneur to get stuck in the trap of like always constantly new ideas or doing things, because then you're not like, if you can focus in and scale back, that's where I've seen the most success in my own business, is doing a few things really well instead of trying to do all the things.
Yeah, I love that. Something I remember I learned was have like 3 to-do lists. And I used to be really good at keeping this on my dry erase board, but it's like stuff I have to do. Like these things have to be done. I'm looking at my dry erase board so I can remember the stuff I need to do and then stuff I should do eventually.
Mhm.
So like taking that list of the stuff I should do eventually and like all the fun things, like maybe eventually I'd like to do this or this would be
Yes.
software or this. But like, I'm going to put these over here and I'm not going to think about them until I'm like sitting there and I'm like, man, I have nothing else to do. Maybe I should go to that eventually list and I can pull from my eventually list. But right now I need to focus on the stuff I really need to be doing this moment so I don't get lost and distracted. So
Someone that has a really good system for that too, Jordan Rayner, he wrote a book called Redeeming Your Time, and I highly recommend it. He has a few books that are great. Called to Create is another one, but Redeeming Your Time, he actually has like really practical steps. And he talks about something similar where there's like different lists of getting it out of your brain, but having a spot for it to be that you can access and go back to. If you're like, "Oh, I have all this free time, I'd love to incorporate new business ideas."
you're like, yes, I want to start that podcast now because I have so much.
Yes. Right.
That's how like the podcast for me, it was like on my list. One day down the road,
Yep.
do this. And then like I prayed some other things, but they know like, okay, now it's decided to do it. So I think it's super helpful to have that list. What would you say to somebody who just struggles at like finding the balance of it all and like maybe they're at that phase and I'll speak to my past. I remember being at the phase where I would stay up all night. My husband would go to bed at night and I'd be like, I'll see you in a few hours. And then I would come crawling to bed at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because I was working all night. I had all of these clients because they weren't paying me very much money. So I had to have all these clients all the time. And I was working constantly. And I just literally was like, sorry, husband, I'll see you whenever. What would you say to those people who are in that stage of like just the hustle, working all the time, making all the sacrifices, pouring everything into their business, like waiting for it to pay off? What would you say to them right in this moment? Like to say, now's the time to decide to create some sort of boundaries or some sort of structure, because if not, you're going to end up at the top of a hike in Yellowstone going, where's my cell phone service? Stop.
Yeah. And I think it's funny. Around the same time, Pete and I worked corporate jobs before we started our own business. And I did management consulting and he did pharmaceutical sales. So we made a stupid amount of money as early 20 somethings with all the benefits. And then we quit to run our own business and work a whole lot more and make a whole lot less. And I remember having that moment of, I don't have any more time to work. I'm barely making enough money. Like, I just felt like I was like spinning on all wheels, on all cylinders. And I was just like, what else can give? The idea of like, how could I ever make 6 figures in this business? How could I ever do this? And I think a lot of what helped us get out of that cycle, and it's so counterintuitive to like set boundaries then and scale back then because you feel like you need to do all the things even to keep going. But I really feel like the moments that we scaled back and simplified our businesses, that helped us to scale a lot more, to serve people better, and to have more capacity and space in our own life. And Like an example for me was we were doing all one-on-one coaching for Facebook ads, probably around the same time we were, maybe a little after we had worked together. And I found out I was pregnant for the first time. And I had this like moment where I thought, what's going to happen to our business? Because I can't do what I'm doing now with the baby. I'm not going to be able to do it. And we had courses on that someday list that you're talking about for a long time. And that was my kick in the pants to finally put those into play. Because then when I did take maternity leave 9 months later with my daughter, we made $30,000 without me working because I had the courses and systems in place. But it took this moment of, I can't do business the way I'm doing it anymore. And so I feel like if you're in it, one thing I'd say is it's not going to last forever, but you're also in control of that. I think you maybe take a step back and look at, am I offering too many things? Can we scale back and offer one thing, maybe at a higher price point? Can you work with less people and elevate that service and elevate that pricing so that you can provide phenomenal photography, whatever it might be? Like, what are ways that you can add profitability to what you're doing so that you can scale back your capacity a little bit? So for photography, it might be like albums. Like, you do an incredible job with print, right? A lot of photographers don't think about print sales. And that's like something that maybe you could think about that part of it. What are ways that you can add value, but add profit to yourself without adding more of your time? I think is a huge thing. And it's not that the answer isn't always courses. That was just my own experience of it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's so easy to burn ourselves out because we are our boss and we think we have to do all of things. And so the short answer of it, though my very long-winded answer was, how can you simplify what you're doing or how you're showing up in order to actually serve your people better? And then in order to actually have a much higher profitability or revenue for yourself.
Yeah. Something I've been challenging my coaching clients lately is, if this was your job, would you stay up all night long working just because you could? Or would you like be like, oh, it's 5 o'clock, time to close my computer and go home? So like I like to say this is a bit of my cynicalness coming out, is like, really, if you start to treat your business like it was a real job, like you were working for someone else,
Yes, that's good.
how would that impact the things you were doing, the actions you were taking? If you told your boss, I'm going on vacation with my family for a week, and you were hiking in Yellowstone, and your boss is like, hey, can you take care of this blog post? You'd be like, hell no, I told you I'm on vacation. Figure it out. It can wait till I'm back.
Yep.
You wouldn't put this immense pressure on yourself. Oh my gosh, I better do it right now or else the world will implode.
I think that's a really good perspective to have. And I think for me, the biggest difference for that was like, I was getting paid whether I was on vacation or whether I was offline because I had a salaried job. And with working for yourself, I think it's so easy to slip into this hustle culture, burnout mode because we have a scarcity mindset. Because we think if we don't work at 10 p.m., if we don't send that email on the top of Yellowstone, if we take a day off on the weekend, then we're going to fail. And so I think if you're trying to overcome that, part of that really is like a mindset shift of realizing like you have to break out of that scarcity mindset and you have to realize like your business will not only survive, but it will probably thrive the more boundaries that you have.
100%. And also too, like in the same context, we can't pour into our clients. We can't pour into our significant others. We can't pour into our kids. We can't pour into even our dogs if we don't take care of ourselves, right? If you just are working all the time, I'm sure, I know you have dogs and you'll love your dogs. And there's a lot of dog photographers that listen to this, so I'm speaking to them. If you're sitting there at your computer working all the time, your dog is going to sit there, Mom, why haven't you taken me on a hike lately? I'm so tired of sitting here watching on the computer. And they're going to feel like that. If you have kids, oh my gosh. Can I just say, like, the wake up call? My dad was a workaholic. He worked all the dang time. I remember being on vacation and my mom and I just being like, I wish we could throw his cell phone in the ocean.
Yeah.
It was just so infuriating. And my biggest fear in life, and this being very brutal, I don't want my child to grow up and feel the same way about me. And you know what he did the other day? I'm going into like crazy. The next 4 weeks are going to be crazy. I have my first show coming out, and I'll photograph like 150, 200 sessions in the next 4 weeks after we record this. And so I've been a little bit of work overnight. Normally I'm like 4 o'clock, close the computer done, but I've been working some of the evenings. And the other day, Kai went and he goes, I need my computer. I was sitting outside. He was playing. I was like timing up some stuff. He goes, I need my computer. I need my computer. And it's like, you need your computer? And he has like a little toy computer. He goes, yeah, I need to help mommy send emails. And I was like, oh no, I'm working for my kid. So like, that was a big wake up moment to me. Like, it was like, oh, my child thinks he needs to help me send email. This is a problem. Maybe I've been on my computer too much this week. So, mind you, my kid watches me work all day because even when during the day when I'm working, he can still see me working. But still, like that was a bit of a gut check. And same thing, like if your significant other is like sitting there, they're like, hey, are you going to come to bed at work? Or if they're like, hey, can we go on a date night? Or if they're like, hey, it'd be nice if like we could have a conversation and not talk business for 5 seconds. Those are your red flags. That something is out of check. So I would just say, like, set those boundaries. Be diligent about protecting your time for yourself, for your family, your dogs, whatever it may be, because really, what is our business if we work our butts off and we can't enjoy it? And I know for you and your husband traveled all over the place in your RV and you did that life, like looking back on it, do you have regrets of like how much y'all were working back then in those times?
Yes, for sure. And it's funny because I look back and I'm like, man, we appreciated it in the moment, obviously. And we traveled across the country and to Canada. We got paid to go to Canada to live with the camping world. Like like we had such cool experiences. But I remember there were so many times where like we'd be somewhere for a week and I felt all this pressure, like I should be working and I should be doing this stuff in my business. And I look back, I'm like, man, I could have worked a lot less, or I could have enjoyed those places more. And obviously hindsight's 2020. But something I've been thinking a lot, even just in this season with really young kids, is I don't think I'm ever going to look back in a few years and be like, man, I wish I worked more. I think I'm going to regret having less time with my kids. And all that I think just comes down to like, what's your priority and value. And that can be different. Someone might not have the same priorities as me right now because they're not a mom of young kids. On the time that we had the RV, if we really reflected a little bit more, okay, this is a once in a lifetime experience. If our priority really is adventure and travel and like exploring these places, then we could have been a little bit more intentional about how we were going about and doing, right? And they're like setting a whole day aside to explore the town that we were in. And so I think no matter what season of life that you're in, I mean, whether you're full-time RVing or just we call it sticks and bricks home with your kids, it's if you need the reflect part of to know what are my priorities and values? Like, why am I even building a business? Why am I doing the things I want to do? Because if I'm saying I'm building a business because I love what I do, but also because I want the freedom to spend time with my kids, then I better prioritize that freedom to spend time with my kids or the freedom to take an hour and go skiing on a random Thursday morning, right? If we don't know why we're doing it or what really matters, then we're not going to prioritize those things at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I wanted to bring this up because I talk to so many photographers that are like, I want to travel. I want to buy a van. I want to buy a camper. I want to travel.
Do it.
I want to send out clients. What I tell them is, and this is speaking from my experience in this, and your experience reflects a bit of this too, is like, I've traveled a lot. I've done a road trip all over the country from Texas to Illinois to Kentucky and back. I bought myself the camper and did it solo while I was pregnant for 4 weeks. It was great. It was this adventure. But did I really get to enjoy it? No, I was working the whole time. I was driving. I was parking my camper, looking it up, sleeping, waking up the next morning, editing, returning emails, doing all the things, driving to my session for the evening, coming back, uploading cards, going to sleep. And it was just like, I got to drive across the country and say I did it. But did I really get the full experience of it because I was just working? And so those of you that are like, I want to travel the world, see the world, and I want my business to pay for it, that's fine and dandy. But look at why you want to do it. Do you want to do it because it looks cool that you travel the world and photograph clients all over the place? Or do you want to do it because you actually want to enjoy it? And if you just want to enjoy it, then go book a trip for a week and do one session.
Yeah.
Don't do a 4-week road trip and photograph a client every single day of your road trip and plan that time strategically and make sure that you're diligent and actually enjoying the experience. And you set things into place so that you don't have to work continually while you're on the road and traveling and doing those things, because it can be really fun, but it can also be really exhausting.
Yeah. And I think depending on how you travel, like we had traveled in like sponsorship type forms before that have been really fun because of this people we were working with and the capacity we added. Like we did have free space. And then we've said yes to things like we bartered our first RV, and what we said yes to, like it just wasn't the best situation, but we got to travel in an RV for a year. That was awesome. But there was a lot of stress that came in, not because of like how we needed to, the work that needed to be done to like, maintain our end of it. So I think there's some really cool things when we think of getting paid to travel or photograph or whatever it might be. But to your point, like then it's work too at the end of the day, not just for pleasure. And so I think you need to think about like why, like you said, why you want to travel or experience these things, or and you can do both, right? Like you can build in the capacity or the boundaries, but it's not, if you're just doing it for the work part, it's not going to be that same experience too for the but you just traveling around the country in a cross country road trip.
Yeah. I think a big perspective shift that I've made in my own head over business in general is I want to be paid really well from the clients I have so that I can go on really amazing vacations and not think about work at all. I want to be paid really well from the clients I have, and I don't want to have to like work for charity. Instead, I want to make good money and give freely with my money to charity. This is like a big perspective shift that I've made that's been really helpful. And the whole idea of I'm not going to go take pictures of a million dogs at a dog shelter. Instead, I'm going to make a lot of money and then I'm going to donate my money to that shelter because I can and because I want to support them. And same thing, like I'm going to give back to my church. I'm going to give back to these charities that are important to me. And I'm able to do that because of my business and because I'm expecting that my clients are going to pay me well. Gosh, my dog is barking so loud right now. Sorry.
You're good. I really can't hear it.
My editor is going to have to edit this piece out.
Sorry.
Okay. So I feel like this has been incredibly eye-opening. I loved hearing your story and your journey. I've always been such a huge fan of you and Pete and just seeing everything you've done, the journey from living on the road full time, traveling all over the place, going to like RV conventions, getting to when you came to Texas for an RV, whatever that was.
The RV Entrepreneur Summit. Yeah.
RV Entrepreneurs. Like getting to meet y'all in person, came to Texas. Like it has been such a good journey to follow. And I've always been your biggest cheerleaders about everything you do because I think y'all are just so good at it. So anyone who's following or listening to this podcast today, make sure you go follow Pete and Jordan. And go follow them, check them out, check out their journal. It's really amazing. I keep saying I'm just going to order like a bunch of them and just give them to everyone we go to church with and be like, y'all need this. So it's really amazing. It's really actually really good quality journal. I'm a journalaholic too. So like I judge journals based on the quality I'm doing. So I think it's really cool. But Jordan just launched her podcast too. So Jordan, tell everyone where they can find you if they want to follow you or connect with you or check out all of that stuff.
Yeah. So it's funny. Pete and Jordan, you can go there. We don't really post actively on there, but if you want to go see the RV life, that's where we shared a lot of it. But now you can find me on Instagram at jordanjones.co. And that's my website too, jordanjones.co. And the journal is the Daily Kairos Journal. It's spelled Kairos. And yeah, I just launched the Work and Worship podcast. So that should be where all podcasts are. Your local podcast directory, whatever you prefer.
Yes. I love that. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your life. I feel like I took away an hour of your valuable 2-day work week time.
Oh, this is, you know what? I set the boundaries of what I'm going to do in those 2 days, right? Like I have my clients that I serve and I have podcasts like my own interviews or others. And I very intentional what I say yes and no to. And so this was an easy yes for me. We adore you. And I'm so excited for you in this podcast and honored to be on it.
Thanks for saying yes. And it was so good to have you. And I cannot wait to listen to your podcast and hear all the goodness you share, because I know it's going to be so golden. And I just know that everything you share is always good. So I'm super excited for that. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.